KeyForge surprised players in a lot of ways when it was first introduced, from the unique deck aspect to the fundamental concept of the game itself. Another really cool mechanic was that of linked cards. When one card showed up in a deck, another would always show up with it. That's what we'll be covering in Day 8 of KeyForge Christmas, all the different paired cards that have shown up throughout KeyForge's history. Without further ado, let's get into it. We'll start with the pair Time Traveler and Help from Future Self. These guys are absolutely insane, and paired cards just haven't been the same since. You draw 2 cards when you play Time Traveler, and he has an action ability that lets you put him back into your deck. HFFS grabs Time Traveler from your deck or discard pile and gets him into your hand. Altogether, not only do these guys make Ember fast, but you also cycle quicker, shuffle your cards back together, and can recur them easily. They're the complete package, and comboed with things like Twin Bolt Emission and Library Access, things can get silly quick. In fact, the current restricted list bans pods with both Time Traveler and Library Access, and you're not even allowed to build aligned stacks with that combo. And like I said before, paired cards just haven't hit the same sense. Vellum and Hyde from Worlds Collide onward are actually on the better end of the spectrum, offering a similar level of efficiency if not more so, but their potency was dependent on them sticking to the board. They had neat destroyed effects that could recur them and make them each playable again, and if they stuck around they could reap to draw 2 and archive 2, but they don't feel quite as consistent as Time Traveler and HFFS, though their ability to archive each other can get pretty annoying to deal with. I do, however, appreciate their linked artwork. I always love it when cards do that. In Saurian, we have Charybdis and Scylla, 2 absolute beasts, each at 7 power, and each making your opponent's life a nightmare. One punishes them for reaping, the other for fighting. They'll want to fight to get rid of the creatures, but they'll lose Ember for doing so maybe they'd rather reap, but then their creatures are taking damage. They sort of put your opponent in a damned if you do, damned if you don't scenario, and for that reason they definitely rank pretty high for me. And their artwork is also linked, just like Vellum and Hyde. In Worlds Collide, Brobnar received a number of creatures that had a more powerful variant, their power increased by 2 called Mega versions. Moghunter had a Mega Moghunter version, Shorty had a Mega Shorty version, and so on. These Mega versions always came with a matching brew, so Mega Moghunter would always come with Moghunter's brew, presumably where their Mega personality comes from. However, each of these brews are the exact same, giving +2 power to a creature, and their art is all the same as well, which just seems kinda lame. Quite a long shot from the days of Time Traveler and HFFS, but sometimes that extra power can be nice. A pretty funny and flavorful example of paired cards come in the form of Toad and Xenos Bloodshadow. Xenos Bloodshadow is virtually invincible in a fight, and pretty much can only be taken down with direct damage or removal, holding some of the highest stats in the game, but he always comes with a pitiful 1-power Toad who can't even reap. According to his flavor text, Xenos apparently lives in Fangtooth Cavern, an untamed artifact, while Toad is actually Prince Derek, an AoE Sanctum creature. The way all these cards come together to form a single thread is awesome, and that sort of flavor is one of my favorite things about KeyForge. Going back to WC Brobnar for a minute, we have Aigon the Green and Aigon the Terrible, yet another example of paired cards that are just a total miss. They're rather confusing, with one needing to be purged for the other to even be playable, meaning they need to come in a very specific order for them to work. And once you finally do get them working, the end result is hardly worth it. Just an 8-power creature that steals 1 Ember when it fights. It doesn't even have Skirmish or Assault or anything like that, it's just a rather vanilla form of Ember control. It is at least cool to see Brobnar with the steal effect, since those are very few and far between for that house, but the Aigons are still just convoluted and difficult to work with. So far, everything I've mentioned except the weird brews have been rare, but this next pair introduced in Dark Tidings is actually uncommon. Orphean Lands Chosen and Orpheal Seas Chosen. These two are nice because they offer you a benefit no matter which way the tide is oriented for you. If the tide is low, you get some extra armor and a capture ability, but if the tide is high, you get to gain some Ember through fighting. However, at uncommon, they tend to show up in way too many decks, but in most cases that's not always a bad thing. I believe Orphean and Orpheal are perfect Sanctum creatures for the set they show up in. Dark Tidings also introduced the fan favorite, while not necessarily competitive, Omnipus, with its multitude of tentaclids. Omnipus has a built-in mechanism upon play to get as many tentaclids on the board as possible along with him, making his bursty reap effect as potent as can be. It varies how many tentaclids end up in your deck, but in most cases they tend to just take up too many slots in your unfathomable pod that could be filled with something more valuable. The last pair for today's video also shows up in Dark Tidings, here to replace Comm Officer Kirby after his sudden mutation, Comm Officer Hings and Comm Officer Gross. These two are a force to be reckoned with, and combined with the right tools in Star Alliance, they can result in some pretty massive turns. Get a couple Rocketeer Triskas and a Unity or Discord in with them, and you've got a banger Star Alliance pod, drawing tons of cards if you've got a decent battle line with Hings, and boosting up that battle line each reap with Gross. They're a very fun pair, and almost act as witch creatures in terms of how quickly the opponent must deal with them before they go off. Now, obviously there are a number of other linked cards that I haven't talked about in this video. Z-Force Agent and all its upgrades, the 4 Horsemen, the Untamed Evolution creatures, the groundbreaking Discovery set, but this video is just all about the pairs. So let me know in the comments which of these pairs is your favorite, even if it's not necessarily the strongest. And lastly, at the end of these 12 days, I'll be doing an awesome giveaway that you guys will not want to miss out on. I'll be making a post in the community tab of my channel with more details when the day arrives, so be sure to subscribe to Aembermedes so you don't miss out on anything. Thank you all so much for watching, and I can't wait to see you all again in the next one. See you later.